All right, here we are, guys. Another excellent Monday morning. Another edition of TG's Morning Stream brought to you proudly, as it is every day, by CFM Group. Hashtag always thinking. Remember that. So, today's episode had a great weekend, by the way. Coffee, Wyoming mug, official Wyoming mug, purchased in Wyoming on a very, very snowy day. Absolutely fantastic. So, as I said, great weekend. Two graduation parties I got to go to this weekend. One for my nephew's son, Jake, and we also celebrated his brother's birthday, Justin. So Jake and Justin both had a little party this weekend. Interesting economic lesson up there this weekend as well, which we'll get into if I remember and if we have time. And then also got to share in Dana and Dylan Dice's graduation celebration yesterday over at Dave's house. That was fantastic and wonderful, and just had a great time. I thank you guys so much for inviting me and having me over there and treating me just like a member of the family. So that was wonderful. I appreciate that, and had a wonderful time. And it was so good to see both of those young people, all three of those young people with the graduation, and then obviously Justin also with the birthday celebration. So had a great time and enjoyed it. But it is Monday, back at the desk, ready to roll, and have an interesting topic today. We have been hearing a lot lately about, well, not just lately, but for a long time, we've been hearing a lot about this topic, and thought I would get into it with my 2 cents and give you guys a little insight as to what I think about the minimum wage. You might be able to guess what I think about the minimum wage based on the title of the stream this morning, which is $0 minimum wage. And I put in there Economist Explains as kind of a tribute to Ivan, my buddy Ivan on Tech, who has a YouTube channel for cryptocurrency and does a morning show every day on crypto, and is one of his favorite little topics, his favorite little taglines for his streams. So we're always, whatever the topic was that day, Programmer Explains. So that's a little shout out to Ivan, my guy there. So, yes, I am a strong and advocate of a count them, $0 minimum wage. I don't believe there should be a minimum wage. I think the minimum wage is whatever somebody will go to work for. And we're seeing this all over the place right now. We've had in the last several years, we've had a lot of discussion about this magic $15 an hour number. And we're seeing the results of that in some of the most progressive, most liberal cities in the country that have done that. Up in Seattle, for instance, we've had massive numbers of restaurant closures and historically restaurant employees, get the bulk of this minimum wage discussion. Fast food employees and whatnot, the kind of considered the nationwide kind of entry-level job, oftentimes is fast food. It was for me. It was for many of my friends that I grew up with, and still is today. But the interesting thing, and it was. I mean, we've talked about this in some way, shape, or form in the past. But it doesn't take a genius to see to know what's going to happen when you start mandating these artificial levels of wage. And a great example that I use to explain to people why a minimum wage doesn't make any sense whatsoever is especially when they're arguing about the $15 minimum wage. I will say, okay, well, if 15 is good, how about 20? And they're like, well, 20 would be great. Okay, well, how about, if we go 20, why don't we just go 40? $40 minimum wage. Well, that would be fantastic. And well, 40. I mean, why don't we just round it up? Go ahead and round it up to 50. Just a $50 minimum wage. And you might get a little bit of a cockeyed stare at that point, and they say, well, I would be good with $50 an hour. No problem with that. So, well, you know what? Let's not go 50. Let's go 100. Let's go just $100 minimum wage across the board. Everybody, fast food worker, pumping gas, what bus and table, whatever it is, you're $50 an hour or $100 an hour rather, $100 an hour minimum wage. Well, and then they start to look at you like you're crazy. And at some point, if they say, well, $100 would be great too, then you say, oh, well, what about 200? How about $200 minimum wage? And at some point, they will say, well, that's just stupid. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. Which destroys the argument all the way down the chain from 200 to 100 to 50 to 25 to all the way down the chain, because it is simply just an arbitrary number. And it doesn't make any difference. The minimum wage is whatever somebody should be, whatever somebody will go to work for. If I run an ad to hire somebody, and I'm looking for a personal assistant to help with my business and to help with my schedule and my calendars and helping me with accounting and clerical work and whatnot, and I advertise that position and I'm going to pay him $2 an hour. How many calls do you think I'm going to get? I'm going to go with 0. If I offer that same position for $30,000 a year, you think I'll get any calls? Probably. If I offer that same position and I offer $50,000 a year, I'll probably get a lot more calls. If I offer if I run that same ad and I offer $80,000 a year, my phone will be blowing up with people trying to get that job. So the thing is that the wage is whatever the market will bear. And if people will complain about, well, these workers will come in and take the jobs that the Americans won't do, but it's just the whole minimum wage thing is just a fallacy. It just doesn't work, and we're seeing it right now. So, like I said, like in Seattle, in the Pacific Northwest up there, it's devastating, the service industry up there, and as it is in Baltimore area and everywhere that they've tried it, it is just a devastating effect, having a devastating effect on that service segment of the economy in those areas. But one of the interesting things that we're seeing is, and we touched on this a little bit the other day, is that companies are having now to offer a much higher wage in order to get people to work, because the economy is booming. There are more jobs than there are people to fill them. Supply and demand, more jobs, fewer people. What do I have to do? I have to pay more to get those people to accept those jobs. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing part-time summertime jobs, employers offering benefits to college students and high school students that want to work over the summer. We're seeing the fast food industry. We're seeing some of these places now offering $15 an hour, or more in some cases. I remember a story a while back about when up in North Dakota, the boom up there, the oil boom up there, was just driving people up there by the droves. I had a lot of friends of mine who were drivers that went up there, and they could go up there and drive, run tankers, running the oil out of the oil fields, and make just exorbitant amounts of money, just running, and they would go up there and live up there for 2 or 3 weeks and come home for a week, and live up there for 2 or 3 weeks and come home for a week. Brutal work, hard work, and brutal weather conditions in most of the year. But again, it was a market-born phenomenon, and in those areas, the housing was they could not build houses fast enough, or apartments or housing facilities fast enough to house the workers that were coming up there to work. And as well, Walmart, McDonald's, all of these, quote unquote entry level positions, they couldn't find people to fill them. They were having to offer $15, $20 an hour in order to fill these positions up there. So it's just, we're seeing it all over the country now. We're seeing it in the economy now. And it's just a beautiful, glaring case for that minimum wage is ridiculous. It's a fallacy. It's a left wing crutch. And it has nothing. It has nothing to do with reality. It's not based on anything. It's not. It's just some arbitrary number that some bureaucrat up in D.C. or wherever has decided that, okay, $15 an hour is the magic number. Well, why is 15 magic? Why not 25? Why not 50? Why not 100? Why not $1,000 an hour? It's just an arbitrary number that they pull out of the sky that means absolutely nothing. The wage is what you're willing to work for. When I started driving, I see Abraham has joined the chat, joined the stream today. Good morning, brother. Love you, Abraham. When I started driving, the driving is a great way to make a living, man. You make a lot of money out there on the road. It's a tough lifestyle for some people, especially with families and kids and that kind of thing. But the drivers, it's totally realistic to make 70, 80, 90, 100,000 plus dollars a year driving out there. But it's a tough gig, and you've got to pay those kind of wages. You've got to let the drivers earn that kind of money in order to entice them to get out there and go over the road. Because, as I said, it's a lifestyle, and it's a tough lifestyle. It's incredibly rewarding financially, and you get to see the country, every nook and cranny of the country. It's fantastic. You get to see all over the place and do that. But it's also, I mean, when it comes right down to it, especially if you're OTR, full blown over the road driver, I mean, you live in that truck, and you essentially are at work. I mean, your commute is 36 inches from the bunk to the seat, every morning. And when you get done at the end of the day, your commute is another 36 inches from the seat back to the bunk, and so there's not a whole lot. I mean, you literally live in that truck, and there's an argument to say that you essentially work 24 hours a day, 24/7 when you're out on the road. And so now, $100,000 a year. I mean, when you're working 24/7, that doesn't really equate to a great hourly wage. If you're trying to support your family and sending money back home and doing that kind of thing, I mean, it's a good living. It's a great living. But like I said, it's a tough one. And we're seeing changes even in that industry now. Companies are having to offer more incentives, higher wages. I heard an ad the other day on the radio on the satellite radio for drivers that I forget what company it was, but they were offering to subsidize them for a year after they came in to the business. They were going to give them a natural gas powered truck, and they were going to be running that natural gas truck, one of the cleanest fuels out there, and they were going to be able to buy that fuel for $1 a gallon for the first year that they were on the road with them. So, I mean, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on the trucking business, but your variable expense, your single largest variable expense in that business is fuel. And the better you can do on fuel economy, the more money stays in your pocket. I figured it out and calculated it all out one time. For every 1 mile a gallon better that I did on my fuel expenses, that translated to directly to about $450 a month in my pocket that I got to keep instead of had to put in the fuel tank. So that's that. I mean, that's just another example of these incentives and these wages, these with the employment numbers being what they are, with the economy doing what it's doing, you have got to incentivize people to get them to come to your business to work. And whether you're talking about an entry-level cashier at McDonald's or Walmart, or whether you're talking about an experienced CDL driver doing over-the-road trucking. I mean, you've got to make incentives so that they will come to work. If I tell you that you can come drive for me and make $250,000 a year, you're going to beat down the door to get to my company in order to make that money. If I tell you can come drive to me and you're going to make $6 an hour, hey, you're not going to move quite as quick to get there. So it's just a matter of supply and demand, plain and simple. It's simple. It's Econ 101. I say this all the time, but it's economics 101. And the minimum wage does not make any sense whatsoever. It is tied to nothing. It means nothing. It is an arbitrary number plucked out of the sky, which has no bearing on reality whatsoever. But how do you really feel, Tom? So, anyway, that's about it for today. Oh, I will tell you the little story. I went up to Maryland for my nephew's son's graduation and his brother's birthday. So we had a kind of a combo party there. And so I went up there, and I think I was over there. I was going to show you the crisp $100 bills that I had, but I went up there and I brought I brought my laptop with me, and I brought some gifts, obviously graduation gifts. So I sat them down both. I set them both down. I had Jake and Justin with me, and I said, okay, so I got a choice for you here. I will give you each one of these crisp $100 bills, or I'll give you $100 in Bitcoin. Which would you like? And it's funny because Jake, the older one, just graduated from high school, instantly was, I don't want $100 worth of Bitcoin. That's ridiculous. I want the money, And his younger brother, Justin, who's a little more in the gaming community and whatnot, from what I understand from his dad and whatnot, was oh, I'll take the Bitcoin. And his little buddy, who was there with him, who came over and said, what are y'all doing? What are y'all talking? He's like, oh, take the Bitcoin, and so it was interesting. It was an interesting little social experiment that we ended up doing there. And so we ended up having a long discussion about it, and family members were, well, what is this Bitcoin? Can you tell me about it? And what is it? Can you give me a quick overview of it? And so after some discussion and some admitted coercing by his dad, Jake came around, and Justin both came around, and they both ended up with $100 worth of Bitcoin. So that was pretty cool. It was interesting to do that, and like his dad said, Keith, my nephew, said, what do you got to lose? You got plenty of money. You'll have plenty of other $100 bills, coming your way over the next few years. He said, just take it and set it aside and forget about it. 10 years, 5 years, you get out of college, maybe it's worth, maybe it's worth $10,000. Maybe it's worth $2. Maybe it's worth $0. Who knows? But, $100 isn't going to make or break you. So go ahead and do that. So I thought that was interesting that we had high school graduate and essentially a 16-year-old that said, hey, which one of you want the money? Which one of you want the Bitcoin? And the younger of the two chose the Bitcoin. And it's interesting because these guys, these not just these guys, but that generation, they've never grown up in it. They've grown up in an environment where they have never been without the collective knowledge of the world at their fingertips. Everything from the internet to cell phones to flat screen TVs to robotics and just all self-driving cars now, all kinds of stuff. They have never been in a time without the internet, without like I said, without cell phones, without everything, all the technology that we have now that this younger generation is just taken for granted. We were talking at one of the parties at Dave's party. Was outside back with some of the guys just chatting, and guys my age and a little bit older. We had these events that occurred in our lives, and there was no cell phone, there was no hop on the phone and call 911 or see something crazy and pop out your cell phone and start videotaping it. Now, if you're doing anything wild and crazy, you better bank on the fact that somebody somewhere somehow there's going to be a camera on you, and it's going to go viral at some point, especially if it's something bad. So interesting. Again, had a great weekend. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Keith and Lisa up in Owings Mills. It was a wonderful time with family. It was just so great to see you guys, and glad to be part of that. And then again, Dave. And Linda, what a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful family you guys have, and just love your daughters, and just crazily. And then the obviously also Monty and Dylan and his brother and that side of the family. Just a great group of folks, and we just had a fantastic time. Enjoyed it immensely, and again, thank you for inviting me in and making me feel like just part of the family over there. So that was fantastic. So you guys ready for a Monday? Ready for a great week? Get out there, get after it, and remember. Doesn't matter whether you think you can or you think you can't. You are right. Have a great day. I will talk to you tomorrow.